Today I'm going to be doing an astrology love reading of D'Angelo and Angie Stone. May both their souls rest in peace. My name is Natalie. If you speak French, it's Nathalie. I am a former mental health therapist turned astrologer. Before I get into their love reading, I want to talk about the history of their love. One of my followers on Threads told me that a lot of people were hung up about the age difference between them. That's never really concerned me. As long as two people are adults, they're free to do whatever they want. My only issue is when adults pursue children. That's unethical because children don't have the brain capacity yet to consent to romance with an adult. If two adults are together, I don't care what the age difference is, but I know some people do. D'Angelo and Angie met, according to research, in the mid to late 1990s. What happened is D'Angelo went on the Apollo. He was about 17 years old. He decided not to pursue college. He dropped out of school, went to the Apollo with his group. The performance went really well. During that Apollo experience and all the accolades that he received from that performance, he decided that he was going to pursue music. So when he went back to Virginia, because the Apollo's in New York, he decided that's what he was going to do. He made a demo, started distributing his demos. EMI Record picked up his demo. D'Angelo in 1991 started working with them. 17 years old, wins the Apollo, decides he's going to get into music, and they sign him onto a publishing deal so he can write. So this publishing deal is for a couple of years. And it was around this time, Angie Stone, who had a much longer career than him, was also brought on to the same record label to help write. They met in the mid to late 90s, around the time that he was working on material for Brown Sugar, actually. So a couple of years go by, then he gets signed as an independent artist, and his first product is Brown Sugar. And she is around that time. She has admitted that they were official when he was 19, right? So 2 years of a publishing deal, right? So that puts him at 19 when he was writing for other people, right? You know, when he got his own deal. And then she was 30. They got brought together so she could help him put together his first album. Looking at their charts, it's very obvious to me that she was kind of like a mentor to him, like a maternal type figure. So Voodoo, second album, right, happens around 1998 to 2000. Around this time, their relationship is still strong because they were together from the mid 1990s all the way to Voodoo. Even like a couple of years after Voodoo, they're still together because she has writing credits on some of the songs on Voodoo. Like there are 3 songs that she has writing credits on. So they're still working together professionally. At this point, they're officially dating. They have given birth. They made another human. They have a son together. The relationship is going well. But as you know, with Voodoo, his fame blew up, right? Y'all know this. His fame got bigger. And as his fame got bigger, the machine that is the fame machine wanted to curate his image, right? Because fame is an illusion, right? We know this, right? It's like you're playing a character. It's not really who you are. It's who you represent. Are y'all with me? I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what I'm describing. Are y'all with me? Because I'm about to share some things about like what went on with the relationship that caused it to end. Yes. So you're saying you understand what I'm saying. So no shade, and I'm not saying this to be any type of like mean-spirited, but I'm just being real. You know, when you think about the people that they want to put on the covers of magazine, the people that they want to put in music videos that are dancing behind the artist, when you think about the people that the music industry promotes as independent artists, you know, many of them do not have Angie Stone's look. Okay? I think ultimately that's what the issue was, because she had been grinding in the music industry much longer than D'Angelo, but she didn't even get the shots that he got until much later than him. So the two of them dating, obviously they bonded. It was like a kindred spirit type of soulmate companionship that they had. It was a deep friendship that was spiritual, that was physical, that was artistic. It was all the things, honestly. That's what I can see from their chart. But when the fame came, the machine that is the music industry wanted to curate his image, and Angie Stone just didn't fit that. All of a sudden, the conversation has shifted to the fact that she wasn't good enough for him. She wasn't attractive enough for him. She was using him. She was too old. She was taking advantage of him. All this kind of stuff. I remember reading an article, and for those of you who love D'Angelo like I do, I would recommend that you read a GQ article that he did. And you know, you don't have to go crazy like me and read everything about him, but he has an article, you know, on GQ. You can just Google it, D'Angelo GQ, and read that. But there is another article that I read where she was talking about how when the fame came, she remembers one time the two of them were riding together in the car and they were going to an award show, an event, and suddenly in the middle of the road, the car stopped. And they told her she needed to get out, that this was going to be her stop. Another car was going to, actually, no, they told him he needed to get out and he needed to go get in a car with another female star who was kind of big at the time. She just done a movie with Will Smith. She was kind of big and his star was rising. So they were trying to associate him with another rising star, which would be good for both of their stars rising together. And it's like she was casted to the side and she was not invited. She was not acknowledged. She was not supported. Basically, the industry did not get behind this relationship. They were, you know, they were not on red carpets together. They were not going to shows together. They were not next to each other in any of these public events. All of the love that they had for each other, from what I understood from my research, they had to hide it. It had to be kept, you know, below the radar. And if you go online right now even and start Googling D'Angelo speaking about Angie Stone, you will have a very hard time finding anything because he doesn't even talk about her. So I think because he came in the industry at a young age, like 17, 18, the industry basically like groomed him, like taught him everything there is to know. And they put this idea in his head that him associating with her was not going to be good for his career because she doesn't have the looks. She doesn't have the attitude. She doesn't have the demeanor, the presentation, whatever. She doesn't have it. And him being with her was going to lower his star. So he doesn't talk about her. Just go Google it right now. Google D'Angelo and Angie Stone. What has D'Angelo ever said about Angie Stone? The answer is nothing, even though they have a son together. So I'm sure that's got to be very painful. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of bad blood between them, but I'm glad they're together now so they can sort it out because of that. Because in the way she helped him get his confidence when he first came on the scene, nobody was looking at him because she talks a lot about him. Okay. She talks a lot, a lot about him. She said he was her first love before him. She had never really like loved anybody or dated anybody. He was the first person she ever dated. She thought he was older because he's kind of an old soul. So she didn't even realize he was 19, even though she was 30 when they met. That's what she said. So I think their love was pure, but I don't think they were in an environment that could respect the purity of their love. So I think the industry kept pushing more physically, conventionally attractive women on him, and he bought into it because he's young. He's got a lot of money at this point. He's got a lot of fame. You know, everybody's looking at him as a sex symbol. You know, like he's at the height of his career. Of course he wants to throw his weight around. So she admitted that the only reason why they ended up breaking up, which she broke up with him, he didn't break up with her, and he pursued her, she didn't pursue him. This is all what she's saying. We don't know what he's saying because remember, he doesn't say anything about her. But she admitted that she only broke up with him after she found out that he cheated on her and conceived a girl, the daughter. D'Angelo has 3 children. Okay, like a typical Aquarius, he's very, very private. We don't even know the mother of the 3rd child or the mother of the 2nd child or the name of the 2nd child. The only child we know about is Angie because she talks a lot. And she's very open and she's also in the industry, so it's hard for that information to get hidden. But the other 2, we don't know anything about them because he was very, very private about his personal life. So according to Angie Stone, when she found out that he got that model pregnant and had the daughter with her, that's when she broke up with him. So that's basically how their relationship ended because of betrayal and lies between them. All right. And let's see. Let's talk a little bit about D'Angelo's history. like how he grew up, because I think that's a huge part of this story. Now, astrology is so weird that I'm just going to bring this up to you guys before I lose sight of that. So D'Angelo's real last name is Archer. Can any of you tell me the zodiac sign that's associated with the Archer in astrology? Which one is that? If I say, which zodiac sign do you associate with an Archer in astrology? What would you say? Thank you for all the likes, by the way. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for keeping the likes up. What zodiac sign do we traditionally? Yes, Rochelle, you got it. It's Sagittarius. Now, looking at D'Angelo's chart, it's very obvious he has issues with masculinity, with men, with manhood. And that's because he grew up in a very religious home. And in the Pentecostal home that he grew up in, you know, it was a very churchy home. And you know, churchy homes are very male-centered. So his father was at the center of the home. And his father was very dominant with his faith. You know, there was no wiggle room. Everything was very strict, very rigid. And that didn't really agree much with D'Angelo. He was the youngest of 3 boys, no girls in the home. And so not a lot of sensitivity in the home, not a lot of femininity in the home. Guess what zodiac sign his father was? Anyone wants to guess? His father is an Archer, and his father was domineering, and D'Angelo has issues with domineering men or masculinity. Someone said Capricorn, but it's actually Sagittarius. But Capricorn makes sense, and we'll get to the Capricorn element a little later. So D'Angelo was an Archer, last name Archer, raised by a Sagittarius father who is an Archer, right? Are y'all following me so far, right? And guess what zodiac sign Angie Stone is? Archer. Yes, same one, same Sagittarius. So the issues of Sagittarius that D'Angelo had with his father, he took to Angie Stone, who's also a Sagittarius. Let me tell you something about Sagittarius, and I made a few videos today about Lilith and Sagittarius. People love lying to us. Okay? I need you to understand something about zodiac signs. It is an energetic vibration. So when you begin to embody the authentic essence of your zodiac sign, you will attract people who are the opposite, because light attracts darkness, and darkness and light work together. So when you are a Sagittarius who pride yourself on telling the truth and being honest and authentic, you're going to attract people who lie to you. Because the universe loves balance. And when you're a Sagittarius who is a liar, you're going to attract people to you who always tell the truth. Because life is in balance. Are you with me? So Angie Stone ended up being the Sagittarius that D'Angelo lied to. He lied to her about another woman that he ended up getting pregnant without her knowing. Because obviously, if they had a situation where it was open, because a lot of people in Hollywood have these types of situations where, you know, it's like they work so much, they're all over the place, they don't always get to be in the same house with the person, and they agree to open their situation, and it is what it is. But it doesn't sound like that's what they had. It sounded like she thought they had monogamy, or whatever she thought they had certainly did not involve him getting another woman pregnant. Whatever the situation was. So he ended up lying to her about that, which is why she broke up with him and their relationship hasn't been good. But I bet you she was a lying ass Sagittarius, she would have been attracting people that tell the truth, because that's the way that it works. You know, your zodiac sign, you have to become it, or other people will bring you the opposite of that energy to trigger you. Like, as an example, a lot of you like to call Scorpio evil and manipulative, but that's because when Scorpio is being honest, a lot of you like to manipulate them and like to hide things from them and like to see what you can get out of them. So then they become the manipulative and evil force that you speak of. So it's either you're going to take the negativity people give you and alchemize it so you can stay in your purity, or you're going to let their negativity transform you so you can become like them. So the Archer, back to his father and the truth-telling ways of Sagittarius, his father ended up doing something in that home that caused his mother to leave the father and the children to go live with the mother. Are y'all following me? Something happened. Remember, D'Angelo, very private, so we don't know the story. We don't know. But we do know that both his parents were ministers. So if two ministers decide to get a divorce, it's got to be on religious grounds, right? What are some of the religious grounds upon which ministers can get divorced? Anybody wants to take a shot at what might be some religious grounds for divorce when you're a very strict Pentecostal, Christian? I grew up in a very strict Christian home as well, so I can relate a lot to D'Angelo's life because of this. Anyone wants to guess? Because those communities are very male-centered. Everything happens around the men, and the women are secondary. Their needs, their wants, their desires, their opinions, all of that is secondary. If a woman wants to divorce a man in a very strict religious environment, there are certain conditions that have to be met. And one of the most classic ones is infidelity. The Bible says if there's infidelity, you can end the divorce. Right? So D'Angelo doesn't tell us why, but what we do know is something happened that caused his mother to take their children and leave the father, even though they were in this very strict Christian home. And then eventually something happened with the mother where, the children ended up being raised by both the mother and the grandmother. So that's how his art came to the scene, because when he was younger, even though D'Angelo is very talented and was a musical genius, he taught himself how to play piano at age 3. It was in his blood. His mother and father were both musically inclined. So it wasn't just that he was good, it's that his legacy was good with music. His lineage was good with music. And you guys who follow my channel know that I talk about 3 zodiac signs that are considered karmic in astrology, meaning that they come to this world with a lot of bad karma that they have to cleanse from their bloodline. Those zodiac signs are Aquarius, Capricorn, and Scorpio. So my suspicion as an astrologer is that oftentimes when there's a lot of spirituality in a bloodline, a lot of art, there's also a lot of mental health, because they tend to go hand in hand, okay? Pisces zodiac sign is the most musically talented zodiac sign, and it's also the most delusional, the most prone to mental health issues. And this is why Pisces is such a complex figure, because on one hand, they're very empathetic, very in tune with what's really happening with you emotionally, but at the same time, they're also very delusional, very not present in reality, very much so in the spiritual realm, not really grounded in the physical realm at all. So my suspicion is that D'Angelo's bloodline has a lot of artistic, spiritual gifts that also come along with a dash of mental health issues that we could kind of see with him, okay, over time. And usually when people have issues with substance abuse, there's usually issues with trauma and sexual issues that come along with that, Just from my work as a therapist, I have never met anyone who has serious substance abuse issues who also doesn't have any history with trauma at all, and who also doesn't have any history with sexual trauma. And the problem with very strict religious environments is that when there are traumatic things that happen that are uncomfortable, like sexual trauma, let's say one of the ministers was touching on the kids, these communities don't know how to handle mental health situations in a normal way. They don't know how to. And a lot of times the advice that they give makes the victim feel worse. Like, oh, just pray about it, or just forget about it, or, just pray for your enemies, like that sort of thing. Not very helpful, because when a child has been traumatized, what they actually need is treatment. Okay, they need treatment so they can feel better. Asking them to pray about it is not gonna make them feel better. When a child is having mental health symptoms and they're saying they're hearing voices or they're seeing things that are not there, the spiritual community is ill-equipped to handle that, because they think everything is about the devil. Like if you're, and D'Angelo, again, back to that GQ article, he said he saw his brother and his father lay their hands on people in the church and perform an exorcism live. And I'm not saying the devil isn't real. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that we do have certain tools in our modern society to be able to handle certain situations. If you see an adult touching on the child in the church, that's not the devil. That man is a PDF file, okay? And we need to handle that appropriately. And praying about it and laying hands on them, that's not how we fix that. So my suspicion is that part of his childhood has made it hard for him to be authentically himself, to really connect with his honest, genuine feelings, because everything was so repressed. That's what Rochelle said. She said, yes, everything is hidden. Sagittarius as well is very spiritual, is what Nahima said, yes. So a lot of times spirituality is birthed out of trauma. It's not uncommon that people that are deeply spiritual also have very traumatic backgrounds. Usually they go hand in hand. And usually there's also a dash of mental health issues that come along with that because of the sensitivity of that person. There's a reason why people have a relationship with spirituality and other people don't. Okay, there's something about their makeup is what I'm trying to speak to. So one of the things that came up in that article is D'Angelo talked about how his music is really like a duality of like sin and like yearning for salvation because he grew up very religious. So he was trying to highlight this dichotomy, like where the preacher is on the pulpit talking about fornication and how fornication is wrong. But then he saw that same preacher, looking up, Sister Jones' skirt, when she was walking in. So it's like reconciling, the duality of the human nature, which is naturally prone towards like fleshy behaviors and selfish behaviors and, lustful behaviors, and then trying to align this lust with like this yearning for spirituality. And when you grow up in a very strict religious environment, you don't really get to explore the depth of your humanity because there's so much messaging that's telling you that you need to be holy, you need to rise above, you need to be a better person, you need to be mindful of your sins, you need to elevate, your consciousness. So all of that is all fine and dandy, but you're still a human being in a human body, and that human body is gonna go through some things. If that human body has been traumatized, that trauma is stored in that body. That human body needs to know how to function with that trauma in this reality. And those are the tools that are often missing from these environments. So it's not surprising that when you end up spending your whole life shoving every emotion that makes you feel uncomfortable down, that you would turn to drugs. That makes sense to everybody, right? Because you're looking for relief from the tension. And that's exactly what happened with D'Angelo, okay? Because when you become rich and famous and you have all the money in the world to buy as many drugs as you want and you haven't learned any other ways to cope with your symptoms, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it's not that he didn't go to treatment. He admitted he went plenty of times. But every time he went, he wasn't really opening up when he was there. He didn't want to tell the truth about why he was using. And that was part of what kept him using. Okay, so now let's go on to their chart. So D'Angelo is an Aquarius sun. Angie Stone is a Sagittarius sun. Remember, Archer from his father issues that he's working through with her. His moon is in Libra. Libra moon is a very challenged moon placement because these people never feel good enough, because no matter what they do, their parents make them feel like they're not good enough. So back to the strict religious background, D'Angelo was basically forbidden from pursuing secular music from his father because they consider that secular music. They didn't listen to the radio. They didn't watch regular television shows. They thought it was bad to expose yourself to that kind of influence. And whenever he started getting into music, his father really hated it, and it created a rift in the family. It's only because of his mother that he was able to pursue it, because she was a little bit more open. Angie Stone was a Taurus moon, and you can see that in the very earthy presentation that she has. Like, her looks is earthy, her music is earthy, everything about her gives like earth goddess, and that's pretty much what her energy was. As far as Mercury, he has a Mercury in Pisces. I've already mentioned that Mercury in Pisces is the voice of the gods, because Neptune, again, is the voice of spirituality. So whatever needs to come in from the other side, because Neptune dissolves, Pisces dissolves, the physical and the spiritual. There's no boundary there for Pisces. It's all one thing. So Pisces, Mercury, usually they're very gifted with their voice. Another person that's Pisces, Mercury is the girl. What's her name? As I'm saying that, her name is escaping me. The sisters that Beyonce signed onto her label. The one that played the cartoon character with the red hair. Holly. Yes, Holly. She's a Mercury in Pisces. Did you see that? Did you go watch the cartoon movie that I'm talking about? The Mermaid, Little Mermaid? Did any of you go see it? Her voice in Little Mermaid is quite literally angelic. And that is the voice of Mercury in Pisces. It's angelic because it's literally from the other side. It's from another world. It's not from this world. Anybody that you know who has Mercury in Pisces, they're going to have an angelic voice. They're going to have a kind of wisdom that transcends this reality. They're going to be very good singers. These people are also very good at learning languages. Very, very good at speaking all the languages, okay? Venus, actually, Angie Stone's Mercury is in Sagittarius, all right? His Venus is in Capricorn. This is when we get into the daddy stuff, okay? Capricorn is the father of the zodiac. Wherever you have Capricorn, it's the influences of your father, okay? And wherever you have Cancer, it's the influences of your mother. Venus in Capricorn, the reason why he couldn't marry and settle down is because of his father. Whatever happened between his father and his mother really traumatized them, and I don't think he ever recovered from it. And we'll get to that a little later. Angie Stone with her Venus in Sagittarius. Venus in Sagittarius is a very non-committal zodiac sign, so they don't do long-term relationships. So he's aversion to marriage and commitment. That actually worked well for her. She didn't really want to marry him based on what I can see here. What she really wanted was for him to tell her the truth. That's all Sagittarius ever wants, for people to be honest, but they can't. They come to us specifically just to lie. They will spend all this time just collecting how they're going to piece together the lie, trying to find the right word so the lies can sound good, trying to put the lie together like a beautiful puzzle. They are obsessed with lying to us. They're obsessed with going to great lengths just to come up with very interesting ways to lie. All she wanted was for him to be honest. If he didn't want to be with just her after they had the boy, she just wanted him to say that. If he didn't want to be with her at all, she just wanted him to say that. But for her to find out that he was having a girl after they had a son, that was devastating for her because she couldn't imagine that he would betray her this way, especially because when he came on the scene, nobody was checking for him. Nobody thought he was sexy. Nobody thought he was interesting. Nobody thought he was going to be as big as he became, but she always saw it. She always believed in him. She was his biggest cheerleader. She was his biggest supporter, just like you guys know how Sagittarius is. When a Sagittarius is in your camp, they make you blow up. They make everything about you bigger. They expand your world. It's inevitable. And she even told him that. When you put this record out, you're going to be the biggest thing ever. And she was right. Moving on to Mars. Her Mars is in Sagittarius and his is in Taurus, okay? Jupiter, they both have the same Jupiter, so they were brought together to bring each other luck. And their Jupiter was in Aquarius because they had a very unusual relationship that worked really well for them. It was a relationship that didn't fit. So D'Angelo and Angie Stone had a very unconventional relationship. It was a relationship that didn't fit the typical format of a relationship, but they didn't mind it because it worked for them because they were being honest with each other. So when the honesty left, the friendship also left. And that's the thing with Sagittarius. The Sagittarius has to be friends with you first, just like Aquarius. Sagittarius and Aquarius both have that in common. When it comes to love relationship, they prefer their love relationships to start as a friendship because they want to make sure that they actually like you as a person and that they're interested in you as a person and that they respect you as a person, because a lot of the connection, the love connection, is built around ethics. It's built around code of conduct. It's built around value system, spirituality, how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we do life. What do we care about? What do we value? All of those kinds of spiritual deep connections is what these two are seeking. So whenever betrayal and deceit came in the picture, it just ruined the purity of that connection, even though what they were supposed to give to each other was the freedom to be themselves while also being in relationship. So she allowed him to feel free to be himself with her because she was not trying to keep him caged. In fact, she wasn't like worried about him or what he does or doesn't do. But I think the delusion of Neptune, because he has his Jupiter at the Pisces degree, so he was keeping things from her. And she has hers at the Libra degree, so hers is karmic. And it's both Aquarian, so that karma was unavoidable in terms of why they were brought together. They were brought together for karmic reasons. Moving on to Saturn, his karma he's karma, which is Saturn, is in Gemini. So this really speaks to what I was picking up on, which is like lack of truth. Gemini, Saturn is somebody who lies for fun. Okay? They don't tell the truth for fun. They just tell half-truths for fun. And it's not even coming from like a mean-spirited way. It's a mean-spirited place. It's like a playful thing to them. Saturn, Gemini, they don't understand that their words have power. And when they use their gift that God has given them, which is a gift of communication, that's a gift of Gemini, to slander or to mislead or to tell half-truths, there is a punishment attached to that. So if you want to know what it is that in this life you have to control to be successful with your manifestation, you need to know your Saturn, because your Saturn tells you what your limits are, what your boundaries are. Someone that has Saturn in Gemini has to say what they mean and mean what they say. Okay? They cannot be somebody that, spread lies and think that their relationships are going to be good. They're not going to be able to keep lies covered, is what I'm trying to say. When your Saturn is not in Gemini, you can lie and get away with it. When it is, you can't, is what I'm trying to say. Her Saturn is in Capricorn, so men are her restrictions. Interestingly, they both have their Saturn at the Cancer degree, so they both have mommy issues. They both didn't have moms that made them feel emotionally safe and secure. So they made each other feel safe and secure. But she has, based on this, again, I didn't do a deep dive into Angie Stone's dating history. Y'all can let me know what I'm missing. But somebody that has Saturn in Capricorn, if they're heterosexual, if they date men, is not somebody that's going to have any luck with relationships with men. They're going to dog you out. Because wherever you have Saturn is where you're restricted, is where you have to hold back. Okay? It's where you have to hold back. It's where you have to have a boundary. So not having a boundary with men is always going to bring you problems. And, obviously, I'm sure they lived the life that they were supposed to live, but you could argue that she didn't have a boundary with him. Because she was 30, he was 19. Yes, it is legal for a 19-year-old to date a 30-year-old. But as a 30-year-old woman, if a 19-year-old boy starts taking interest in you like that, and especially at work, the Saturn and Capricorn thing to do is to not keep your honey where you make your money. It's to protect your work. So that lack of boundary by choosing a lover at work is already a betrayal of Capricorn's rule. And if you're Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, I need you to know this. Choosing a lover at work is always a betrayal of Capricorn's rule. That will get you fucked every time. Every single time. Because Saturn represents boundaries, restrictions, discipline. Okay? Boundaries means limits. You have to know your limits. They have to know their limits. If you're at work, work is not a bar. Work is not a dating scene. Work is where you go to do a job. Trying to have a lover at work does not bring blessings when you have your Saturn in Capricorn. Everybody's life is very different, very unique. This is why you can't compare your life to other people. This is why you can't do what everybody does. Other people can meet the love, be together for 50 years and live happily ever after. Okay? When you have your Saturn in Capricorn, you trying to date people at work is going to bring you into so much of a headache. You're going to wish you never done it. And you know what's insane? While I was doing their reading, I could feel myself getting a headache. I was getting a headache getting through their reading because I looked at their chart before I came on, and this is the first time I've actually ever done that, because usually I do it while we're together. But I looked at their chart before I came on, because they've transitioned and I wanted to do them justice. Not that I don't care about the other ones, but I wanted to be more thoughtful. I wanted to take my time to feel the energies, and I'm glad I did that, because that was the first mistake for both of them. So she broke the rule of getting a lover at work, and he broke the rule of not being honest. Moving on to Uranus. If you want to manifest a new reality, Uranus is how you transport yourself into a better future. His is in Libra. Hers is in Virgo. She was supposed to be focusing on her health, on her wellness, on her daily routine, on taking care of her body. I don't know anything about Angie Stone's background, but I can see here that she had a lot of health issues. I can see that here very clearly. So any of you that know her background, if you can confirm that for me, I would appreciate it. And if you can confirm like her history with men, I would appreciate that as well. Okay? So she had mommy issues and daddy issues. So far for him, we're seeing mommy issues and daddy issues as well, because the mommy issues for both of them is karmic, and that's probably why they ended up together. They provided each other emotional comfort. But for him, the daddy issues come from having Sun at Aquarius, because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, which speaks to father issues, okay? And for her, the daddy issues are also at Saturn, because she has Capricorn at the Cancer degree. So her karma is both her mommy and her daddy, okay? It can be hard when your karma is both of them. It's not an easy path at all. And oftentimes when you're that kind of person and you did a lot of work on yourself to still make a life out of yourself, if you don't really heal that original wound, you attract a lot of people that bring you back to that trauma you're trying to run away from. I wouldn't be surprised if her daddy lied to her mama too. The same way D'Angelo came and lied to her, the same way D'Angelo's daddy lied to his mama. Do you see what I'm saying? This is what I mean by breaking generational curses, because a lot of times these patterns run in families, okay? Somebody said, yes, she did. Okay, see, I didn't even know any of that. I don't know a lot about her history, but thank you for confirming that for me. Now moving on to Neptune. Her Neptune is in Scorpio. It's, again, at the Pisces degree, so a lot of spiritual healing for her. A lot of her dreams came from her faith, from her belief in herself, her belief in the higher power, for her relationship with spirituality. A lot of her music had gospel influences, and that's probably how D'Angelo got into wearing the cross, because the church that he grew up in, they didn't actually believe in Jesus. It was like a Pentecostal church that believed in Yahweh. They didn't really believe in Jesus. They didn't talk about Jesus like that. They certainly didn't wear crosses. But I think she's the one who introduced them to that. I think she helped him deepen his relationship with God. So that was her gift to him. And his Neptune in Sagittarius is also deeply spiritual. So these two together had a very deeply spiritual connection. His Neptune is also at the Sagittarius degree. So it doesn't get more spiritual than that, because hers is Scorpio at Pisces degree and his is Sagittarius at Sagittarius degree. Yes, they were going to make their dreams come true. Like, I know their lives were short-lived and tragic in some regards, but this is all written. This is exactly how it was supposed to play out, because they lived out their dreams. They both lived out their dreams. Okay, moving on to Pluto. Pluto is what you need to destroy about yourself if you want to manifest the life of your dreams. If you do not destroy this thing about yourself, other people will destroy it in you. Do you understand? Energy is neither good or bad. It's both. Every light has a shadow. So remember earlier I said when you're truth-telling Sagittarius, you attract liars? Yes, energy has a shadow, okay? So his Pluto is in Libra. He's here to learn how to have healthy relationships. That's what he was supposed to be focused on with his spiritual journey. How to have a healthy relationships. Pluto also tells you how you're going to die, by the way. If you want to know how you're going to die, if you're that kind of dark soul and you're curious about that, you go to your Pluto. And what's interesting about that is I can see here that his Pluto is at the Virgo degree, which rules over health and wellness. So if I was an astrologer and he was, his astrologer, and he was asking me how he was going to die, I was going to tell him he was going to die from a health issue, but the health issue was going to stem from him having a broken heart. Okay? Because I think the lack of love that D'Angelo received in childhood followed him. Because it wasn't just that he wasn't loved properly by his father, because, when the house broke up, the dad became very critical of how the boys were being raised by the mother. And every time he would get together with D'Angelo, there was all that critique about D'Angelo's interest in secular music. And what sucks is that his whole family was in that church. So him leaving to go pursue his music career was basically him going against his entire family. And when you're an Aquarius, that's what you're here to do. He did what he was supposed to do. But the problem is, in addition to not getting the love, the warmth, the nurturing that he needed, he also got rejected. So it's both. You don't get the support and you get rejected. So he was supposed to go from that early woundedness of rejection, right, to learn how to build healthy relationships so he could build a community for himself outside of his original family. But because of his Saturn in Gemini, in the case of Angie Stone, it made it hard for him to develop healthy romantic relationships, hence the 3 children by 3 different women. But he was really supposed to be falling in love with one woman, because that one woman was actually going to help him with his health. That's what he was supposed to be doing. Now for her Pluto's in Virgo. She was supposed to prioritize her health. And I can see that it's at the Saturn degree, a Capricorn degree, because that's her karma. And back to that same Uranus in Virgo. So that's what she was supposed to be focusing on. Those of you that said that she had health issues and issues with men, what sort of health issues does she have? I'm just curious now. If you know, you can share. If you don't know, it's okay. But yeah, so her karma was bad health from previous lives, and she was supposed to focus on that, on the home front. But I suspect that she was not very good at taking care of her body. That's what I can see here. Because Pluto, that when you have that Pluto in Virgo at the Capricorn degree, you have to be very strict with taking care of your body. It can't just be like a casual. It has to be a little bit obsessive. And I don't think she was that. And it's not just body, it's also her mental health. It's also her mental health, because I remember her saying, again, I don't know a lot, but it's something about her saying that she discovered that she wasn't getting paid her royalties, and it sounds like she didn't catch on to it sooner. So I don't know. There's some things here that, how can I say this? When you have your Pluto in Virgo at the Capricorn degree, you have to be militant about your affairs. Okay? Your business affairs as well as your health affairs. Nothing can be casual about it. Nothing can be laid back about it. It's got to be military style. Every day I wake up at this time, I go to the gym. Every day I take my insulin shot. Again, I don't know what's going on with her. I'm just speaking in general. Every day I take my insulin shot at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. That's what I do. If my royalty checks is supposed to come on the 15th, every 15th I'm checking to see if it's there. If it's not there, you know what I mean? You got to be on top of things. And because I heard her complaining about how she didn't get her royalties for a while and she didn't realize it until later, I wonder if she struggled to stay organized, to create a routine that helped her, stay on top of her finance. Because Virgo isn't just body. It's also management. That's basically it. It's management, because Capricorn is also management. So when you have Virgo and Capricorn together, you have a lot of anal retentive energy that is being required of you. And that's the thing. Pluto is uncomfortable because it's not what you're used to doing. It's not what feels safe. I'm sure if D'Angelo was sitting here and I was asking him about relationships, I'm sure he would be crawling in his skin. The fact that this man never even spoke about this woman tells me everything I need to know about how he felt about relationships. And it's not that he didn't love people. It's that I think something with the way his mom and dad handled their breakup really broke something in him that made him feel fearful or not trusting of relationships in general. So Pluto is not supposed to feel comfortable. This is why a lot of people don't like Scorpio, okay? Because Pluto rules Scorpio. It's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because it forces you to change, and change is not easy. So I get the sense that Angie wanted to be like a fly by the seat of your pants type of person, because I can see that she's a Sagittarius stellium. Sagittarius stellium because she has it at the Sun, she has it at Mercury, she has it at Venus and Mars. She has 4 Sagittarius placements. And I don't know her houses since I don't have their rising signs. I can't speak on those. So it's possible she may have a 5th one. Usually Sagittarius is very free-spirited and very adventurous and very go with the flow. And Virgo and Scorpio are very different energies. Virgo, Capricorn, very different energies. So she needed to pull back. She needed to be more meticulous. She needed to slow things down and be more routine and do things, for the betterment of her health. And it doesn't look like that was much of a priority. Now, moving on to North Nodes, okay? Thanks to you guys that are liking the live, tapping on the screen. Thank you, Kimmy, for joining. Hi, Scrappies. Bye, Lou. Thanks for being here. And you guys, if you have questions, feel free to just jot them down and I'll answer them for you. Let's finish off with the North Node. North Node in Sagittarius. So remember how I told you that if you want to find the love of your life, you need to date somebody that has your North Node at the Sun. Do you remember me saying that? Those of you who've been following me for a while, that's one of my sure pieces of advice that I give my clients, okay? And he has his North Node in Sagittarius, and she's a Sagittarius stellium, so she was definitely the love of his life. He's never said it, but she said it. She said that he was the love of her life, and he was her soulmate, and he's her best relationship and only relationship, okay? So he's a Sagittarius North Node, so she came into his life to help him come into his stardom, come into his independence, get an identity outside of the Christian church that he grew up in, be more comfortable testing those boundaries, figuring out what works for him, what doesn't work for him. She basically set him free. She gave him the key to embrace his sensuality, his sexuality, his beauty, his prowess, his masculinity. He really struggled with masculinity, but she made him okay with being gritty, being a man. And even that video with Voodoo that made and broke him, it was really a nod to masculinity, like all the muscles and the cuts in his body, in his body, and the way women were lusting after him. Like, this is energy he never thought he could have, because he's always had like kind of a love-hate relationship with men, and the way they dog out women and the way they use women, and all the way back to what happened between his parents. Again, I don't know the details, but that was freedom that she gave him. And the reason she was able to give that to him is because she has that moon in Taurus. Moon in Taurus is the ideal moon placement that anyone can have. It's very grounding. It's very nurturing, very loyal. She was extremely loyal to him for many years. She basically built him up emotionally from the inside out. He also has his Mars in Taurus, so he was very... She basically built him up emotionally from the inside out. He also has his Mars in Taurus, so he was very... My alarm. We're almost at the end here. He was very sexually attracted to her. Everybody knows Brown Sugar was kind of like, she was his muse, right? And she even wrote on Voodoo. Like, he really loved her body. He loved her mind. He loved her smile. He loved her essence. He loved everything about her. When you share a Jupiter placement with somebody, you're going to blow each other up because you're only able to see the good in each other. This is what Sagittarius energy does. It makes you want to look on the bright side. So they saw each other's bright sides only. And it made it hard for them to see each other's darkness. And that's not necessarily a bad thing when you came from a lot of darkness, to have somebody that finally focuses only on your positivity. Moving on to her North Node, hers is in Leo. So she came here to be independent, to be a star, to be honorable, to be somebody that does things on her own terms. And she has that at the Taurus degree. So she definitely did that because she was a much longer star than he was. And she also was more active in her stardom than he was. Lilith, his Lilith is in Capricorn. This is how I knew he had daddy issues. Lilith and Capricorn are raised by parents that are very domineering. So either Lilith and Capricorn ends up growing up resenting authority because they hated the way that they were dominated in childhood, or they become people that embody the qualities of domineering personalities. Do you see how energy works? It's both sides. It's either you're going to find balance between these extremes or you're going to self-destruct. So I wouldn't be surprised. All right, guys. So if you wouldn't mind tapping on the screen, I just got that notification from TikTok that, they're going to shut it down in 5 minutes because the screen hasn't been active. So if you could send me some likes to keep it active, I would really appreciate it. So Lilith in Capricorn speaks to issues with mother and father, issues with being parented in an aggressive way, issues with not being given room to make decisions, issues with being given too much responsibilities in childhood, and your childhood not really being honored or dignified. A lot of Lilith in Capricorn people end up being very anti-authority people, or they end up being very authoritarian themselves if they don't find balance, okay? So that's the daddy issues. But since his Saturn is at the Cancer degree, that's where we see the mommy issues. Because remember, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, so a lot of his karma comes from his bloodline, okay? Which again, I think a lot of this has to do with trauma, not being able to heal trauma outside of the church, and also mental health issues. As you know, he struggled a lot with his own emotional issues and substance abuse issues. Moving on to Chiron. Chiron in Aries. If any of you have your Chiron in Aries, I did a whole Chiron from Aries all the way to Pisces on my YouTube channel called Styled Under Virgo. You can go and check it out. All of the Chirons are there. I'm working on the Lilith placements right now, so you'll have all of that. I've already done Aries. But Chiron and Aries are people who have the wound of taking space. And I actually just posted a video on that on my Instagram, so you can go and follow that Instagram account. If you're not following it already, it's at Intuitive Healing. But basically, these people are made to feel insignificant in their childhood. Like, they don't matter. They're unimportant. Him being the youngest boy, I know that message was reinforced, especially growing up in the home with a father that was domineering, where it's like, it's just one way. It's my way or the highway. That's the thing with Sagittarius, his father being a Sagittarius. When Sagittarius is healthy, they're balanced. When they're not healthy, they're very dogmatic. Like, there's only one answer. There's only one right answer, and that's it. When a Sagittarius is healthy, they understand there are many right answers. And to people who struggle with this idea of living outside the box, they can see Sagittarius as being manipulative or deceitful because they don't understand that you can actually see what's in the box without committing to the box. And that's a space that I'm in. As somebody that grew up in a very religious home like D'Angelo, I am on my own path spiritually. I don't have a desire to fit into anyone's box, anyone's interpretation of my faith or my spirituality, because I understand it's between me and God, and that's where I like to keep it. So a lot of times, Chiron in Aries, they don't have the freedom to take space, to be themselves, because their parents want to make them feel small, want to control them, want to dominate them, not because they're mean people, but they just don't have the leverage to give those children the opportunity to identify with, for themselves what they want, what they need. It's one thing to want to teach your children about God, but when they get to a certain age, it becomes entirely their decision what they want to do with that. But if you tell that child that you're not going to have a relationship with them because they don't believe the same thing that you believe, or you're going to shun them, or you're not going to associate with them, and you're going to turn their entire family against them, that is abusive. And you're doing that because you want them to basically betray themselves, to reject themselves. So that's where D'Angelo learned about this idea of betraying himself. He learned it in his home. That in order to get along with mom and dad, you have to lie. In order to get along with mom and dad, you have to betray yourself. You have to make yourself small. You have to make yourself insignificant because you can't be your real self. So are we surprised then that when he got in relationship with Angie, he couldn't be his real self? No. Where did he learn that? In this environment. So we are the byproduct of our environment, and a lot of what we're here to do is to unlearn those things that harmed us. So we're not continuing to go around in circles. Moving on to her Lilith is in Virgo. Again, Virgo is showing up. It's at the 5th degree, okay? Earlier I mentioned that, Virgo energy requires a lot of discipline and structure. When you have Lilith in Virgo, oftentimes there's a history with family history with a family member being ill, and having to arrange life around that person's illness. There's also a history with feeling like you're never good enough, like your body never looks good enough, which ironically, Chiron in Aries also struggles with that, like with their self-identity. And sometimes it extends to their physical form because, Aries is an animal. Energetically, it's Aries lives more in their animal flesh than anything. So they both have body issues. And I think they brought each other a lot of comfort around that with making peace with their body issues. She certainly also had mommy issues. I don't know anything about her history, but any of you who do, can you confirm for me what her relationship was like with her mother? What do we know about her mother? Was her mother sick? But I do see that it's at the 5th degree. So there's something health related, something in the news about health issues. I know she ended up passing from a tragic accident, but I feel like there's something in the news about health issues with her family. Something health issues related with her family, with the females in her family. If any of you know her history with her mothers or her aunts, if you can share that with me, I would appreciate it. But this is not a secret. This is when you have any placement that you have at the 5th degree, which is Leo degree, this is going to be the part of your life that you can't hide. Wherever you have Leo in your chart, that's the part of your life you can never hide from anyone. So when your Lilith is at that degree, you can't hide that from anyone. So I wonder either if it's that her health was publicized, or if it's her family that has publicized health history. I don't know her history enough, but y'all can tell me if you do know, or if you can do some research, you can fill me in on that, okay? So Lilith and Virgo, usually there's a history of health issues, history of trauma that is unhealed. When people have unhealed Lilith and Virgo, they have a lot of self-hatred, they have a lot of shame, they have a lot of bodily issues. It's not unusual for them to have yo-yo diets, where they go to extremes with their weights, like extremely underweight, extremely overweight, because they're never truly satisfied with who they are. And there's a lot of trying to aspire to be more healthy, but not really a consistent, disciplined, ritualistic way to get to that health. And that's what generally that will look like, is somebody really a consistent, disciplined, ritualistic way to get to that health. And that's what generally that will look like. Lilith in Virgo is someone who struggles with perfectionism in a way that reinforces their illness if they're unhealed, okay? Moving on to Chiron. Her Chiron is in Pisces. Chiron in Pisces struggles with emotional boundaries, okay? And I can see that back to her having Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn in Capricorn says work is for work. I have a boundary around work. I'm here to get paid and do my job and go home. Any Saturn in Capricorn, that's how they need to treat work. However, when a person has a Chiron in Pisces that's unhealed, anybody that comes towards them with a sad story, they get lost in it. So what I suspect happened, because he has his sun in Aquarius, Aquarius is very energetically open, even though he was private with the public. When an Aquarius feels safe with you, they're very open. Aquarius doesn't have a lot of shame about anything that they've survived, which, most Aquarians are going to survive a lot of trauma because, again, they're karmics. Karmics come to this earth already traumatized because they're given to traumatized people, okay? I need y'all to understand that if you're raised by an Aquarius or a Capricorn or a Scorpio, or if you yourself have Aquarius, Capricorn, or Scorpio in your big three, you have a lot of trauma, okay? And your people have a lot of trauma, and that's why you came to heal. So people who don't do their healing work don't learn the skills they need to learn to survive. A Pisces that is healed is going to be a Pisces who has boundaries. A Pisces who does not abandon themselves to make other people feel safe while they feel unsafe. What I suspect happened is that he started opening up to her about his childhood, and she felt comfortable opening up to him too, and they're bonded on a friendship level on that, which she said they started out as friends before it became a relationship. But I think the reason it became a relationship is because the emotional empathy she was giving him was something he never had before, and he translated that into sex because his Mars is in Taurus and she has a Taurus moon. So she's given him Taurus feelings, and the Taurus feelings that she's given him is activating him sexually. So then he wanted to move that emotional expression he was having with her to physicality, and that's what happened. Like she said, he pursued her. I believe her. Well, I'm going to believe a Sagittarius stellium anyways, but I believe her because he interpreted her emotional expansiveness or emotional openness or desire to comfort him and to bring him that kind of like nurturing energy as sexual energy. And she allowed him to share that with her. Now, Lilith in Pisces, boundaried, would have been somebody that said, that listens to him, offers him support, but does not take him on. Because what ended up happening is she took him on as a project, emotionally. He was a friend who was very troubled, had a lot of emotional issues, and she loved him, but it should have just stayed that way. It should have been a kindred spirit type of connection without the sexuality. Because as you can see, when the sexuality got entered and they got the sun, everything exploded and got really bad, because that's not where they were supposed to take it together. They were supposed to help each other become successful. They were supposed to help each other use their emotions to process their pain, their grief, their trauma. They were supposed to help each other spiritually get closer to their relationship with God, whatever that means to them. They were supposed to help each other figure out how to live healthier. And the emotional nature of their connection quickly got distorted, probably because, alcohol, drugs, and those kinds of things can, loosen your defenses. But eventually, as she could see, because as the boy grew up, the son that they had, their relationship got more and more fractured, because the emotional intensity that was there in the beginning wavered. Because that's the thing about Aquarius. It's hot and heavy in the beginning, and then it's like nothing. That's usually how it goes with Aquarius, okay? So the emotional support that was there in the beginning, it went away when his stars started to rise and he started to do all these things, be at all these parties. Like, she wasn't a priority anymore. And she probably felt burdened with the responsibility of taking care of a boy all by herself while he was out there living his life. I'm not saying he wasn't involved in his child's life, but what I do know is that he didn't really reconcile with the boy until shortly before he died. This came from the boy himself, that he and his father had a fractured relationship, much like D'Angelo and his father. Do you see that family patterns? D'Angelo and his father had a fractured relationship. D'Angelo and his son had a fractured relationship. And they didn't reconcile until almost like after the mom died. And then 7 months after the mom died, he died. So now this boy is left without a mother and a father and all of the trauma from those relationships. So it's a really sad story. But sometimes some stories are sad. Some of us were given sad stories. And there's always a lesson to be learned, even in the sadness of the story, because the rest of us that are left here who got to witness what happened, we can take something from it. At this point, those of you who pray for his kids, pray for his son. I know his daughter is also trying to get into the music industry. Well, she's going to be doing that now without her father, who would have been able to help her. So pray for his kids and pray for his family. But it's just a sad story. This is like a situation where you have a kindred spirit, and because of lack of boundaries, poor Saturn development, Saturn in Gemini and Saturn in Capricorn, you're not able to really put the boundaries that are necessary to keep that relationship nurtured. There are 4 essential elements that are needed for things to turn out good for you in astrology. It's a healthy Saturn, a healthy Pluto, a healthy Jupiter, and a healthy Venus. When you don't have a healthy of these 4, you're not going to be able to manifest. Now, the other things that are needed for your self-esteem is a healthy Lilith, a healthy Chiron, and a healthy second house. If you're not doing that work of healing those elements, you won't be able to sustain whatever blessings are given to you, because you don't inherently believe that you deserve it. When you don't believe that you deserve things that the universe give to you, you will find a subconscious way to undermine yourself, to betray yourself, and to ruin it. Even when I think about the video Scorpio that made him and broke him. He grew up in this hyper-religious environment where he really hated men, if we're being honest, which is why a lot of lesbians love his music. Because, you know, a lot of women love his music because he really venerated women. He loved women, and he understood that a lot of times men are not very good to women. So he wasn't really interested in the stereotypical machismo kind of guy type of energy. And that's the gift that he gave to us that we're always going to have. But the point I was trying to make with that is that when you are given a story where you have suffered some pain because of actions that other people have taken, it's your responsibility to heal that pain that was passed on to you so you don't pass it on to other people. You know? And I know he had no control over his timeline, and neither did she. But as you can see, the issue is clearly around art, communication, spirituality, mental health issues, substance abuse, delusion, and father and abandonment from father, and judgment and rejection from family, and abandonment from family. Those are some of the themes in his life. And when I think about his children now, they're going to have to go through that. Not having a father the way he didn't have a father. Like, yeah, he had a physical father. His father passed away in 2021 and his mother passed away in 2023. So he's been going through a lot of grief, a lot of loss. And his children are going to be going through the same thing. And his son, his first son, his mother passed away a day after his birthday. So I don't know anything about his son, but based on what I'm seeing here, there's a lot of karma on both sides of his bloodline. On Angie's side, obviously, and D'Angelo's side. So I'm not surprised that this boy has all this karma that he has to deal with. Because remember, to be a karmic means your bloodline has a lot of things in it that needs detoxing. That's what it means. It means your people were not on the right side of history. They have not done a lot of good things. So you're here in this life to help undo some of the harm that they've caused against the universe. Okay? Some of the imbalance they brought against the universe. And when you do not engage yourself in that work of unlearning, of healing, of alchemizing, of transforming, you end up repeating it. And then the cycle continues. And every person that's on earth right now, especially if you have dominant karmic energies, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, I need you to know that is your spiritual obligation. That's why you came. And if you do not take this seriously, you put yourself in a position where you're going to repeat it, which means the harm that was done to you gets then transferred onward, and it just keeps going. When truly the other path is to accept, take responsibility for the pain, heal it, and then make different choices. D'Angelo, in that GQ interview, when he was asked if he regretted doing the Untitled video, he said he didn't, because he made him famous, but at the same time he did, because he didn't like that he got reduced to the naked boy. And when you ask Questlove about that, that's what Questlove has to say about D'Angelo. So long story short, when you raise children to deny themselves and to lie in order to be loved by you as a parent, you send them a very terrible message that ends up getting replayed in their life down the line. D'Angelo learned from his home that you could not be your authentic self. He learned from his home that in order to be accepted, you had to be fake. You had to be somebody that you're not. You have to do things that make you feel uncomfortable. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order for you to get love. And as we're learning now, that Untitled video made him feel very uncomfortable. He wasn't uncomfortable when he was shooting it, based on the interview that I read. But after the fact, he regretted it. He regretted the implications of that decision, because that singular decision turned him into a sex symbol, which is something that he admired but never wanted to become. Remember, that's Aquarius. Aquarius wants to watch from outside. Leo wants to be it. Leo is the sun. Leo wants to be watched. Aquarius wants to do the watching. So as an Aquarius sun, spiritually, he felt like he betrayed himself when he decided to become the naked boy in order to have a hit. And the hit made him famous, but that fame came with a lot of brokenness and disruption, with the first one being losing Angie. which he never really recovered from, because when she died, he couldn't go to the funeral for that reason. Even though she'd been in his life since he was 19, 18, and she dies and he couldn't go to the funeral. And they have a son together and he couldn't go to the funeral. So sometimes other people will try to use you to make their dreams come true. But if you don't also use them to make your dreams come true, you're going to let them dictate for you how it goes. And you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're doing things that don't make you feel comfortable, that you will end up regretting, because inadvertently, it's not going to turn out good for you because you're violating yourself. Does that make sense? So it's about you as an individual. Everybody can do everything. When you are a Leo, you can take your clothes off on television and the world will reward you for it. When you are an Aquarius and you take your clothes off on television, you will punish yourself for it and the world will punish you for it because you violated your own law, because you have sovereignty over your engine. D'Angelo would perform on tour where women would come and throw money at him, throw their drawers at him, which when you're a sex symbol like Prince, you don't mind it. You love it, in fact. It's cute. It's lovely. It's great. But for him, possibly because of his traumatic childhood, right? Possibly because of his issues with men, which could have something to do with traumatic childhood that he never wanted to tell us about because his North Node is in Sagittarius. He was supposed to be telling us about these things, but he didn't want to talk about it. That's how we ended up here. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to tell us. He told us nothing, but he was supposed to be telling us. He gave us his music, but he was supposed to be telling us about him. He didn't. But possibly because of his traumatic childhood, when these women started throwing money at him on stage, he didn't think that was sexy. He didn't think that was cute. He didn't think that was nice. He said one time he picked the money up and he threw it back at her. Imagine that. You're going to a D'Angelo concert. You saw him naked on the screen. You're so excited. I've been seeing all these videos of these women lusting after him. Me being gay, I'm like, I don't know what the thrill is, but sure. These women are like, oh my God, I'm getting so close to the screen. I want to see what's down there. They're so excited, right? It's a moment. It's a skit. It's not real life. But he took it so personally. He took it so personally because his soul was too deep to not understand that there is a spiritual significance to selling your sexuality. There is a spiritual significance to selling your sexuality. And when you sell yourself as a sex object, people will project their sexuality onto him, onto you. And if you don't have boundaries around that, eventually it's going to get to you to be lusted after this much when you don't really want to be lusted after. And that's how we got here. Because after that, he became a recluse. He hated it because he put so much work into becoming an artist. So much work into learning how to play so many different instruments. I mean, the man taught himself how to play piano, how to play guitar. Like he was a musical genius. And all people could talk about was the cuts on his body in a naked video. And Questlove was right. That was his own undoing. When you are one of the older souls in astrology, you have to use your discernment with what feels spiritually agreeable to you and what doesn't, because everything isn't for everyone. And the more sovereignty, spiritual sovereignty you have, the more of an accountability there is for you to take responsibility for your choices. And that's exactly why Saturn rules over karma. That's exactly why, Aquarius is co-ruled by Saturn, the planet of karma. That's exactly why Pluto, which is another karmic planet, rules over Scorpio. Because your ancestors have already done all this. You're here to do the opposite. You cannot continue to repeat the same story. All of us are here to be uncomfortable. All of us are here to grow, and growth is uncomfortable. But if you're willing to do that hard labor of facing the discomfort, the reward is peace of mind. It's spiritual integrity. It's spiritual sovereignty. It's confidence in yourself because it's not built on other people's opinion. But when you don't teach children to think for themselves, they think making other people happy is their purpose in life. And it's not. Making yourself happy is your purpose in life. Okay? So that's pretty much it. I'll take one question before I disconnect. Hi, gluten-free vegan. Thanks for being here. Shia Baguette, thank you for being a number 3, getting the number 3 gifter badge. I appreciate it. I want to remind you guys that if you seek to have an astrology reading with me, link in bio to do that. You can go to intuitivehealing.com to schedule it. I'm also having a giveaway. All you have to do is donate to the Trevor Project. You can donate $1, whatever you'll like. A lucky donor is going to be selected for a free reading with me. If you want to know what your horoscope looks like on the daily, I do it from Monday through Friday. You can sign up on Patreon, patreon.com/intuitivehealing to check it out for free. If you want to become my personal subscriber there, I can offer you your personalized astrology recording every time we have a new moon and a full moon to share with you manifestation techniques for you to bring your energy in alignment with your desires. And lastly, I have 4 YouTube channels. One of them is focused on holistic health. The other one is focused on love and astrology. I have a general astrology 101 channel for astrology for beginners and also a horoscope channel called the Aquarius Podcast. Lastly, we're having a full moon in Libra coming up on the 21st or 22nd, depending on what part of the world you live in. The Aquarius Podcast is up on Spotify. You can go listen to your horoscope there, or you can go to YouTube to listen to that. Okay, so those are all of my offerings. I also have videos that are available for sale on Patreon if you're interested in those. Until next time, I'll catch you next week. If you don't have any questions, going once, going twice, no questions. All right, well, I hope you have a good rest of your day. You know, life is hard. We don't always know the answers. And sometimes when you're removed from it, that's when you get more insight, you know. I'm just glad he's with Angie again. She's truly the best friend that he's never had. And, you know, that's why her passing really broke him. Because she loved him deeply, you know. Moon and Taurus, they'll love you forever, in life and in death. So I'm glad they're together, and he's not alone, and he's also with his mother and his father. And they're watching over the babies, and everyone's going to be fine. But for those of us that are here, I just want you to know that we have work to do. We all have to keep working on it, and it's not easy. Because, you know, doing what's been done is what's easy. Replaying the same pattern, that's easy. Doing what mommy and daddy did is easy. But having the courage to create your own path and lean into it with integrity, that's hard. It's very hard, especially when there are lots of pressures to fit in and to give in. I need you to know that having sovereignty means owning yourself. That means owning your choices. So don't ever let anyone talk you into choices that you don't feel 100% comfortable with, because ultimately this life is yours and you have to answer for it. It's your gift. What you do with it is entirely your responsibility. Okay? All right. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Au revoir. We'll chat next time. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.